Hi, everyone. Welcome to M4G Advocacy Media. You're joining us on the Journey Surge podcast, season 3. Isn't that amazing?
I know. Goodness gracious.
I'm Mark.
You're first guest.
I'm Mark. This is Crystal.
Incredible.
And
I'm honored.
we're joined by guest Danny Izzy. Hi, Danny.
Hi.
Hi.
So thanks for joining us. Do you want to maybe start out at the beginning, tell people who you are, a bit of your background? I mean, go back as far as you want.
Yeah, sure.
Preferably somewhere after you were born. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so it goes way back when I was in the womb. No, I'm kidding. I don't remember that part. So no, my name is Danny. That's my nickname. It's actually short for Daniela. I live in Virginia right now with my husband and our twins, and I happen to have a disability that I acquired when I was 23 from an injury. So I have a spinal cord injury, and I have a diagnosis of quadriplegia, meaning that I use a wheelchair and I have paralysis in my lower limbs and in my upper limbs to a certain extent, as well as not very good dexterity in my hands, which can be very challenging sometimes as well, especially as a mother. But yeah, so plenty of challenges on a day-to-day basis. But it has been, and I'm smiling while I talk about this. And I think it's important to point out that I wasn't always smiling after acquired my disability. You know, initially it was a very traumatic experience, but it's been a journey, and I've come to a place of acceptance and appreciation for the body that I have and for the community that I am now a part of.
Awesome.
It's great.
Oh, and yeah, I should probably mention that when my twins were born 2.5 years ago, I was the subject of a short documentary film called Danny's Twins.
Yes.
And you know, this film is still in its kind of life cycle. Right now we're looking for a home for the film so that people can actually watch it, right? So right now it's doing a festival circuit, and we're hoping that eventually a streamer or you know another outlet will pick it up and show the world, you know, what it means. Yes, what it means to be a parent with a disability, and just in general, a person with a disability who has, you know, sort of claimed their disability, found their power, and made life choices for themselves, and just forged ahead despite all of the obstacles that are thrown at us, not just from our bodies, but from a society that only is a little you know, there's some issues there, I think, with acceptance and inclusion.
So a two-part question here that came to my mind right away. Number one, was there anything in your past, like growing up, that you could draw on to help you cope with your new situation? And number two, this is how was there stuff that was previously going on that you didn't understand until you became, like, about the world of disability, that you didn't understand until you became disabled?
Yes, absolutely. I love this question. I love this question because it gives me the opportunity to, first of all, admit that I'm human, and at that one point at one point in my life, I was clueless. And I think it's important to take responsibility for that, first of all. But I think it's also important to point out that I had never had an opportunity to learn about disability. And it makes me upset. It makes me upset that I didn't have a view of this world before. I didn't have, I had a few friends with very minor disabilities, but we never talked about their experience as people living with disabilities, I didn't know anybody living with profound disabilities, profound being like at the level of what I'm living with now. I would call it pretty profound. And I definitely had a lot of internalized ableism. And I noticed it when I was initially injured, because all of this stuff bubbled up to the surface, and it made me insecure in this new body. It was really detrimental at the beginning to just my resilience, I think, and to my sense of confidence. Just the fact that I had digested these beliefs that being disabled is less than, that being disabled is, I don't even know what kinds of stigmas that I had in my head, but they were there and they came out when I got injured. And I think part of my journey was very much facing those stigmas head on, and figuring out how to find empowerment as a woman with a disability. So I think, before my injury growing up, on a personal level, I was a very independent person. So my mom is from Italy. She's Italian. And she also has this independent streak. So she always encouraged me to be independent. She would send me off to Italy by myself, starting at like 8 years old. I'd go stay with my family, but I'd fly over there by myself. So she kind of built this sort of independence in me from a young age, where I felt that I could, that I had sort of like, I could do these things, right? So I've always had this kind of like no limits approach to life, which I really do feel helped me when I became injured. I know everybody has the things that helped them. A lot of people will say family, and my family is great, but I'll tell you what, the biggest power for me was that drive for independence, the drive to be curious and explore. A year after I had this traumatic injury that led to a spinal cord injury, by the way, it resulted from a slip and fall. A year after, I went to California by myself from Virginia. Wow. And I went out there, and initially I went to get some therapy. And then I decided I wanted to get a massive surgery that would help me with bladder management. So I did that, and the recovery was about a month. And initially my plan was to go back to Virginia after I got the surgery done at UCLA, but I just kept staying. And I was living out of one suitcase. And this was a time in my life where I really tapped into that fierce sense of independence to figure out how to deal with this new situation I was in. I didn't want anybody's help. And that could be my toxic trait too, right? Like we all need a little bit of help sometimes, and it's
Oh,
totally
yeah.
fine to need help.
Well,
But
Yeah,
yeah, but I learned how I got on benefits because I couldn't work at the time. So I got on disability SSI and SSDI. And those helped me a little bit. The biggest way they helped was I qualified for in-home support services in California. So that was how I was able to have a caregiver who would come in and help me with my day-to-day sort of like, personal needs, showering, getting dressed. And I think, I would have a caregiver about 4 or 5 hours a day that would help me. And it's interesting how I never saw having a caregiver as taking away from my independence. I saw the caregiver as facilitating my independence. So these were all like huge life experiences that I dealt with at a pretty young age. And they strengthened me. I think the whole experience has strengthened me for sure.
So I'm going to ask, so the whole caregiver situation, I know that's a difficult topic because there are definitely disabled people that, could benefit from that, but it's also a very heartbreaking, I guess, situation because a lot of the services are, I don't want to say you have to lie about your needs to get those things in place, but you do feel like you have to stretch the truth somewhat. And
oh my
that
gosh,
ethical,
yes.
that becomes an ethical.
I felt like a criminal all the time.
I know
I mean, like, oh my gosh,
so much about that, and
you have to
we don't
survive.
step on toes. Obviously, those services are needed, but
Right.
they don't need to make us feel like we're doing wrong by requiring something that's not helped.
System is broken. There were things like there would be rules such as, okay, you're getting this care, you have this caregiver, their hours, they're only allowed to work in your home. You can't go anywhere with them. Right. So what the heck? What are you supposed to just be a hermit and stay in your house and not go anywhere? Except they did have allowances for doctor's visits. And then I'm not sure about grocery shopping. I can't remember if they said that the caregiver had to go in the shopping and there were limitations on the time. So you'd read all these rules and it's so dehumanizing. And it's like, of course you don't follow all the rules. I'm not going to say which ones I broke because I don't want to incriminate myself, but I will tell you that at all times
I totally get it because I've been there.
Yes, I was paranoid all the time because, and also the other issue was the caregivers weren't getting paid enough by the state.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so that was a threat to me because I knew that they were always going to be looking for something more sustainable for them, and they deserve to get paid more for that. It's for a very important job, right? And so obviously I had to handle that in my own way as well. But so the whole system is broken, and I learned, and the other thing is to qualify for that care, you have to be pretty much at the poverty level. Any assets you have, or even if you have a spouse that counts against you, you don't get care. So the whole system is broken.
If you add an added situation of having kids that also brings up, do I want all these different people around my kids? Can I trust all these people? And so then it becomes, an issue of, and like I said, an ethical, moral issue,
Mhm.
because we want the best for our kids, right? And we
Right.
don't want them hurt because of us. It would be our fault because we have but no, it's not our fault. We have a disability and make them aware of
Yeah.
that stuff. So what do you think about that? What has you, I mean, I was in a
That's-
situation where I could say, okay, I can pay who I choose to do, but not everybody has that opportunity.
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
So what do you do about it?
Especially nowadays, because there's a caregiver shortage. So you don't get to be picky about who you hire these days. And that can obviously be really problematic. I've had caregivers who were addicted to drugs. Okay. And I don't mind, like, it's okay. Okay, yeah, everyone has their struggles, right? But when it starts to negatively affect your day-to-day life and this person can't do their job, but that's all you have, what are you going to do? And if you have kids, then you don't want that in your home, right? You don't want that situation in your home. So, and I think the other thing that makes it really difficult is there's a fine line between you're my caregiver, but within the scope of your duties, I need you to facilitate some of the things I do as a mother. Now, caregivers that are covered by state policies aren't allowed to be babysitters. And we're not asking that typically. We're just asking them to help us with something we can't even do for ourselves, such as maybe in some examples, cook dinner, right? Not everybody has the dexterity or the physical fitness to be able to cook a dinner.
Right.
But at what point will that caregiver think that, well, this is spilling over into babysitting because I'm also helping to cook food for the kids too. And it's interesting because, and I get it, like I get that this is kind of a sticky thing. But in Canada, I heard, I don't know if the program is there now, but I heard about a program where there's caregivers, there's a role of the caregiver, but there's also some kind of support person for disabled parents. And I can't remember what they called, I can't remember what the name of that role was, but it was perfect. It like solved the whole thing. And they had, that was one of the benefits that disabled parents got or get. It might be a current thing. I can't remember. I'll follow up and ask the woman who told me about it. But I would love to see something like that here in the States.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the problem, like, I'm not that, I'm from Canada, but I'm not that in tune with all the stuff because I don't avail myself of a lot of the things that other disabled people do, right?
Yeah.
Just because I'm not there yet. I'm sure I'll get there in time. But the thing is, the definition they're operating on Canada and maybe in the US too seems to be built on an old model of disability where you have to be a certain level of disability to get everything. Whether you get everything or you get nothing. Yeah.
So true.
Right?
That's so true. Yeah.
If you can do some things, but not certain things,
Yeah.
get nothing.
Yeah. I don't know if,
Sorry, we had
Crystal,
some
if you were,
technical
oh, sure,
difficulties.
no problem.
I
Sorry.
guess the government heard us talking about the stuff
I
they're
know.
doing wrong, they shut us
Yeah.
down.
Yeah, they found out we committed fraud.
It's always been one of our biggest fears, bringing up these very tender topics, and, it being a problem or being, shut off of YouTube or whatever,
Right.
But these are definitely things that need to be discussed and.
They do.
But
Yeah, they
anyways,
need to be discussed, and people need to be brave enough to discuss them without fear of retaliation or anything like that as well. I mean, we are the people who need these services. These services were built for us. So now they're out of date and they need to be updated, right?
Sure. Well, but it's so hard, like I was saying, I got to the point to where, because I did have services for a while, but I was at the point to where, no, this is wrong. I can't do this. I'm required of too many things that aren't really true. I don't need that service yet. My progression is not there yet, but to get any of the other services I require, I have to say that I need those.
Yeah.
Or I've had people telling me you need to just budget.
Right.
And tell people you need more hours because you require a number of hours, correct?
Yep.
And and so you have to really finagle all that.
I know.
I know.
It's funny because I remember a social worker coming in to interview me to determine how many hours I should get. Actually, they were reassessing me. I was like, nothing has changed. I'm paralyzed.
Yeah,
but they came in to reassess.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they were just overall California spends a lot. So I think it felt like they had a goal in mind to reduce hours and an agenda.
I'm willing to bet that social worker didn't really have any medical training, right? Or anything like
I don't know.
that.
All I know is that I was trying to act as disabled as possible, and I'm pretty damn disabled. But I was like saying as still as possible. Like I wasn't. It was funny that I had to do that, and there's other things like I also have invisible symptoms that people can't see. So like just because I'm doing something doesn't mean I'm struggling enormously to do whatever I'm doing. For example,
if you're like me,
I
you never know.
Very low. Yeah, like I have very, very low blood pressure that can hit me randomly through the day where I literally there's no blood flow to my brain or my muscles and I can't do anything. And to the point where I'm like blacking out. But I'm really good at masking that. But and a social worker comes over.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna mask anything.
That's
but
it's really challenging whenever they require you to pretend that you're disabled like 100% of the time.
Yeah.
No, at your worst all the time.
Yeah.
Well, when you have something like we have, it's sporadic. I mean, you always have a test it, but some days are much worse than others. Right.
Yes.
And different hours too.
Yeah.
So
and to a certain extent that applies to everybody. With chronic illness or disability, a lot of us have good, good days and then bad days randomly.
Mhm.
We don't know why.
And some extreme reactions to different environments,
Yeah.
whether it be influences from other people or
Mm,
stuff like food or whatever.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Just your physical space.
Right. And those things we have to prove on those forms often stem to the rest of the population and our general who we hang
Right.
around and stuff like that, to what we're able to do and who we are, you know. And it's not correct. I mean, if you know me and know him and know you, you know that those might not be the full, you might not require those things all the time.
Right.
But they definitely are not, it's not right when those things need to be in place. They
Right.
need to be in place, but
Yeah.
don't treat me like yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And I have to say, like, navigating disability benefits are so early on in my injury and at such a young age. Wow, like that really made me grow up. First of all.
Yes.
Second of all, nobody
Absolutely.
had any clue everyone was clueless. Like all my friends were like, "You're so inspiring, blah blah blah, and you're gonna walk again, and you're so." And I didn't even care. I was like, no, you don't even know half of what I struggle with the most. I didn't understand, and I couldn't explain it to them because it's boring, but they didn't understand that the most disabling thing were these support systems that are supposed to help us, but instead are very challenging to navigate, right? And that was a wake-up call for me. And I think that was my first experience with what disability justice means.
So I had followed you for years, and I guess it was back in 2010.
Hashtag non-stock.
Really,
I had no
long
idea.
time.
That's amazing.
I had a friend of mine who has spina bifida, and we were, in a disability group, and that's where I first found you. And then, at that point, I just, I guess, and that's kind of creepy. But
It's not creepy. It's not creepy.
But then it got really exciting when you started having these different meeting different people and getting more involved in the LA experience.
Yeah.
And especially when you met Andy.
Yes.
Then I started following you with the Denny's Twins film.
Yeah.
And the whole experience and the whole progress of that. And so I really started following it then. And so, and I get it at the time that happened, I was going through a really, really rough time in my own life. And a lot of things were really going downhill. And so, I didn't want to reach out to you, even more so. But I wasn't ready yet, and so, and I guess we just connected, again, because you had been posting a lot of stuff on advocacy, and one of the things you posted was about, enabling people, that say stuff like, you can't get in a building. It's because of your wheelchair. No, it's not, because you are implying it's my fault. It's because you were not making it accessible for me to get into the building to,
Yes.
Yes. So No, and on to what we were talking about, we talked about, some of these topics that we bring up are kind of like, oh, do we really want to touch that, But
Mhm.
it's hard to do that, to have these conversations, whether they're difficult or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
I
because,
mean, it's hard to bring these things up sometimes, because I think sometimes we get mischaracterized when we speak up. We get mischaracterized as the bitter disabled person. Like there's like these tropes, right? That we're all bitter or whatever, whatever people think. But or that we, you know, eat up resources, or that we're burdens, or that we're burdens on taxpayers. And there's all kinds of things that we have to fight against whenever we bring up these topics.
There's lots of things to unpack there.
Yeah,
And
there is.
namely one, if you think disabled people are a burden on whatever resources you have to learn how to manage your resources better.
yeah.
I mean, there are countless politicians flying in private jets and stuff,
Oh,
and
yeah.
we
I mean,
can do it with stuff like that,
yeah. I
right?
mean, people need to understand that disability protections are for everyone. They are protections for all citizens, right? Because anybody can become disabled. This is one of the only minorities that you can join, that you can become, right?
Right.
Temporarily or permanently. And there's people that move in and out of disability as well. But all those protections extend to everybody. So it really bothers me when people have this view that we are like, burdens, because it's like, well, you realize that being able-bodied is a temporary state, right?
Right.
Sorry.
It's because of your wheelchair that you can't get into this building. That seems a bit like blame shifting. It's like,
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
gaslighting. Yeah.
we're very, like, especially in Canada, but in the US too, I've seen it. We're all very cordial and polite to each other, so much so that we're afraid to be honest and admit that the real
Sure.
reason there's no rampant disability because we don't want you here.
Right.
Yeah.
And no one has the guts to say that.
Yeah.
So they just
Yeah.
say your wheelchair is a problem.
Right. Yeah. And you know what? What bothers me about this as well is the world, the architecture that we as a society have put into place, the environments we've built, were built for people who walk with their legs. But think about it. That's not necessarily like steps are accessibility for walkers, because guess what? They can't fly. So it's crazy that there's this view that like, oh, certain structures are the norm, or the way the world is. No, it's not. That's not the world the way it is. We built it to be convenient for one type of person. But there are many more types of people. There are people that roll. There are people that have strollers. There are people that carry suitcases. There are people that can't see. There are people that can't hear, right? And those people make up a huge percentage of the world population. So we need to rethink what access means in general. And we need, I think, kind of people that don't understand disability need to understand that their experience is not the only experience, right?
Right.
Or the only kind of valid framework. Yeah.
They predetermine that they're the ideal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
I think as somebody that you guys had interviewed the other week, that was in one of our talks a couple weeks ago, used the term hegemonic, right?
Those
So
Court.
yeah,
courts.
I thought that was a really interesting word choice. And I guess that means when, you know, something is seen as being like the most important or the biggest influence on how things work. But anyway, yeah, it's I find all of this, all the discussions that come out of disability to be so fascinating, and there's so much like ethics and philosophy behind all of it, and to me it's like infinitely fascinating. And I just wish though that we can create change, that we can get
Right.
people on board to understand that this isn't just our problem. This is everybody's problem.
Absolutely. We had also talked about, we need to stop just pulling people out of the river, right?
Yeah.
Stop trying to fix things but really think about it, really get down to the grassroots of, we need to go upstream and figure out why those people are falling in. What is the underlying problems?
Yes. Yes, that's so true. And I think it really speaks to the idea that there are systemic issues that need to be addressed. And a lot of that just needs to be addressed through better policy. So we have people like our friend Andy, who has dedicated his life to building disability policy. And I love, like, I don't know that people, like, I don't know that the masses understand this side of disability, that it's so entrenched in, that it's so political.
Mhm.
And I don't mean Republican versus Democrat. I mean, in terms
No.
of
Human rights.
we need to have human rights, and we need to build policy to protect those rights. Because I think the masses kind of just see us as charity cases, right?
Mhm.
Or victims of a sad story or an accident or a birth
Yeah.
defect or whatever. They see us through a medical lens,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't think of disability through all the other lenses, especially that political one. That's so important.
Actually, one point you can get to this, or don't have to, but I find it an interesting thought. So, obviously you're someone now who's an advocate for people with disabilities and really embrace that life wholeheartedly. But do you remember a moment in time where it was probably a series of moments where you went from, this wheelchair being separate from you and to you embracing it and becoming like an advocate?
Yeah.
Do you know what he's trying to say?
Yeah, I think so. So I've interpreted it in my way, and I think I can answer. I mean, initially I saw the mobility device as an ugly thing. It was a thing that was stigmatized. It was a thing that communicated to the world that I was weak, or that I was a tragedy. But I've created my own definitions now. where I say, no, you people can think that in your heads, but here's the actual truth. This wheelchair facilitates my independence. It helps me, right? I've learned to embrace it. That's not to dismiss the challenges I experience on a day-to-day basis. But there was this image I saw of a wheelchair on fire. Someone had set their wheelchair on fire, and it was sort of like, I guess the symbolic idea behind it was that, like screw the pain of the disability, and this guy is going to take it out on his wheelchair. I'm like, no, don't burn your wheelchair. Those things cost $20,000. You got to give that to somebody, right? But I mean, I understand the pain behind the experience, especially when you acquire disability in a really traumatic way. But I think it's really important for us to feel empowered in our disabilities as well, despite the challenges we face. But to, and I even had a point where I use a manual wheelchair and I use a power wheelchair. So just depending on what I need to do or what scenario I'm in. And at one point in my journey, I thought that the power chair made me look more disabled. And I was able to shake that yucky stigma off as well over time. And right, because these are tools that we need. We should never feel ashamed just because society has made us think, that these things are bad, right?
Yeah.
But I also had wonderful friends, people with disabilities who guided me, who were my mentors. And one woman in particular, I remember her saying to me, like, I admitted to her that I was embarrassed about when I used the power chair, and she pretty much said, don't say that. It's insulting to yourself and to other people who use wheelchairs. And I'm not going to say F those people who make you feel that way, right? F a society that has made you think this twisted thought, right? So that was very empowering for me to kind of encounter these people who were just comfortable. They're just comfortable with their disabilities, with their mobility devices, and etc. So, does that answer the question?
Yeah, it answers the question.
Yeah, it also, like, onto what you were talking about, people need to get away from that we require something to get around or to make our lives easier or to make us more independent and to get to places we're trying to get to.
Right.
What if stairs didn't exist? What if escalators didn't exist? What if elevators didn't exist?
Yeah.
Nobody can get anywhere. So how would that make us feel? We're no different mindfully than them. So, I mean, it baffles my mind how we were talking with Cora the other day about there being a difference between being able-bodied and ableist. So it's a difference of attitude and how you perceive being disabled, whether you're going to be ableist and be a jack. No, I'm not going to get there. But or if you're going to be able-bodied, which is just the idea of what we've talked about in our inclusivity versus diversity. Diversity is the fact. So is, the fact that those things exist are just the fact.
Right.
But what
Yeah.
are you going to act a jerk? You know,
Yeah.
so there's a difference.
Yeah.
Interesting. You talked about the film itself, but what about the birth and the pregnancy? I mean, the pregnancy with not having to do with the film and birth, and then what they're up to now.
Yeah.
And how it's affected you.
My kids, my girls are 2.5.
Mhm.
They have no qualms at all with my chair. They don't even haven't even formed any thoughts or opinions on it in general yet, because they haven't been exposed to society where they learn those things. To them, it's just a thing that's there.
That's who you
And
are.
Yeah.
They love you for
it's mama's wheelchair. And it's funny because they love things with wheels because of my wheelchair. So they call when they're a little bit younger and they're still learning words for certain, I mean, they're still learning lots of words, but initially they were calling grocery carts wheelchairs.
Aww.
I just thought that was the cutest thing.
Which, you know, if you think about it, the same thing, like people go shopping and use shopping carts.
Yeah, you gotta, because you can't hold all that, right? You gotta put it in a thing with wheels.
It's a tool to get things around. So what are we? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's so fun to think about. But yeah.
I think it's a case of like children of a certain age are young and innocent, untainted by the world, and who we have in power and running the world and running the country are a bunch of people who have been hurt and need to take it out on other people because they need to.
Definitely.
Yeah, power messes with people. Actually, I think people sometimes who have issues are drawn to those power positions. So I think the job itself attracts some eclectic individuals. But anyway, we won't get into that.
Yeah, you were discussing how your young daughters perceived your wheelchair. They really don't have an opinion, or, you know, other people have not littered their heads with who makes you, why you are like you are. And, you know, it makes you less than, stuff like that. So my daughter is 11. So she has had those things, you know. And so it's a major contrast between when they're little and don't, you know, they don't have any negative toward you, or just see you as a person and love you for who you are, you know. And as a mom, you're a disabled mom, you're trying to teach them the right ways to see things and trying to give them the best of the world, you know, this, you know, shattered world we live in. But when they get old enough to take in what other people say and trust them more, because society has taught our kids to look at us as less than. Then what do we expect our kids to do?
And that's why I'm so grateful that for the disability community, right? And I have you, you know, Crystal, and someday I'll be calling you and being like, what the heck? My daughter just came home and said, you know, that her friend said wheelchairs are bad or something, you know, situations like that. And I'll have you to talk to. And that's why the disability community is so vital, because, you know, sometimes this is the only chance we can get to discuss these issues that they don't come up in popular culture. We don't see ourselves in films as in parenting roles. I never have. I've maybe some reality TV shows, but you know, so the only place we have to like navigate navigate dealing with these like kind of big sort of, I don't know, so how these big issues is each other. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We were also talking with court about, the fact that we see all these issues and we want to build a better world so they don't have to go through this stuff,
Mhm.
and also for our parents that are getting older,
Mhm.
we want everybody to be included, regardless of what tools they need to get around, right? And how they talk or how they walk or whatever, they do with, yeah, as a parent, you not only crave for just the world in general to have those human rights and not be looked down on for stupid stuff,
Mhm.
but especially you want those things for your child.
Yes.
You want to make sure those things are in place. As a disabled mom, you don't have many opportunities to give them everything you want as a mom,
Mhm.
but we can give them this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm it feels to me like, people like, me, you, and other people in the disabled community see some of those disparities going on. And
Mhm.
we're determined to do something about it, to make a better world for everybody.
Yes. Yeah. And I definitely think that becoming a mother activated that my mama bear mode, and I'm like an advocate on steroids now compared to before. Like the drive is even more powerful because of just what you said. We love our children so much. We want to make a better world for them.
And not only wanting to make a better world for them, but in our now, we want to fix the injustices and things that we've struggled with. We don't want those to be problematic for other people in the disability community.
Yeah.
Or in the future for the disability, So it's not for the fact that we're moms, it's not it. They're, just as decent human beings that want to fix society, or not fix, I don't want to say that, but want to help society realize what kind of things have been going on. That's to me, I would think of that as, okay, if I wasn't disabled and I saw something like this, I would say, okay, how can we let's really think tank this. Let's really decide how we can fix these issues or make them less problematic or help them so they don't have to fetch forms or help them so they can get the services they need and not feel like they're have to jump through all these hoops to get it, so that they can take care of their kids. They can live comfortably. They don't have to struggle to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I do think it's important to call things out when we see them. And, we might feel like we're not making an impact because we're just individual people and we only have so much power and sway. But little things matter too. I mean, a year ago, I was going through TSA and I was baby wearing one of the twins. Actually, I had her in a lap baby. Do you know what a lap baby is? It's a belt.
Like a
It's
ball?
essentially it's essentially a belt to hold your
Mhm.
baby on your lap. So a lot of wheelchair users use this to carry around their
Mhm.
babies, whereas other moms typically use like carriers where the baby's like strapped to their chest. I like using the lap baby because it didn't strain my back and it didn't contribute to any back pain.
Mm.
And it makes sense. If you're sitting, you hold the baby on your lap, right?
Right.
So I was going through TSA and we were traveling as a family and I had checked the rules online and did all I could do within my power to prepare for this trip. It was the first trip my husband and I did with our twins.
Mm.
And I found a rule that said that women or people, parents, anybody, adults can carry their babies through security in soft carriers. And the lap baby is a soft belt. Essentially, it acts as a carrier. And I went through security and I have to get the pat down every time because I'm a wheelchair user, which is fine.
Mm.
But they told me I couldn't have the baby on my lap. And they said they had to separate my child from me. And I was like, well, what if my husband wasn't here? What would you do? And how come I can't hold my baby and everybody else can?
Right.
You can pat around the baby. You can pat around the baby. Don't take my baby
Right.
from me. I was mad.
Mm. Rightfully.
And I felt that they were taking my power away as a mother
Mm.
just because I had a disability. I felt like I was being punished. How come everybody else got that right to be a responsible parent, to be able to hold and protect their little baby, and I didn't? I was so mad. So I contacted United Spinal. I filed a complaint with TSA to make it official. Then I contacted United Spinal a couple weeks later, told them what happened. They put me in touch with some kind of like disability board at TSA, and they amended the rules.
Oh,
So hopefully
Mhm.
nobody will have to deal with that again.
yeah, no.
But
So
there's
glad you
little
did
things
that.
we can do. Just you gotta call the thing out and then follow up and do what you can,
Mhm.
So
That also, I mean, as disability advocates, we all have to do our own little part. Like, for example, you stepped up and complained, filed a complaint, but then it's up to each individual person that may have this problem occur to refer back to that situation and stand
yeah,
up for themselves
yeah,
to actually keep the ball in play. It's
yeah,
like it's like when you're playing baseball, someone drops a ball on the field, it's essentially dead, right?
right.
If you
Yeah.
can't have the ball be dropped, otherwise the game stops.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And in a way, I feel like that's why social media these days is so important to the disability community, and not just social media, but opportunities like these podcasts and video podcasts and things like that, just so we're all connected, right? So we can all support each other in enforcing our rights. So yeah.
I was I've talked to several people, in advocacy recently. I found this article and I even shared it with him, but and it was so long though we didn't get there all of it. But it was specifically about the administration dehuman
No, it was
I know what
public.
you're saying.
Yeah, administrative What was the word?
It was dehumanization.
Was it?
Yeah,
Administrative burdens.
yeah.
That's what it was.
When it comes to disability. But it was so interesting because it highlighted not only disability, but just low income and different races and different struggles, in
Yeah.
society, right? So it was interesting and it laid out about not only verbally everything that was people were dealing with, but all this also in graphs and charts. And it was really interesting. I'll have to send you that. But I definitely, like you were talking about the TSA issue, sure, but that should not be where you had to fill out forms and talk in all that stuff. Those should not.
Yeah.
All the red tape should not be there. That follow through should not have to be there. Those things should be not even happening in the first place.
Mhm.
But now, and I think part of some of that is, that people are hoping that we're going to drop it and just get tired of trying to push forward,
Yeah.
with what happened.
Yeah, and I think a really important element is to have those disability review boards or disability policy consultants in place at these institutions and at these companies, wherever. It's a great opportunity to employ people with disabilities, right? So that we can update, policies and procedures and make sure that they're equitable and inclusive.
Right. It's definitely, we could spend hours talking about this stuff.
Yes, we could. There's so many angles.
Yeah. But is there anything else that you're working on right now? How the girls what are they into right now?
Everything. They're into everything. And my job is to try to keep them out of everything. And yeah, it's tough, but it's really fun. They're very verbal and have very bright, silly personalities, and
they are so beautiful.
It's a whole lot of fun. Thanks.
So big. It's been so sweet watching them from, of course, when you're pregnant to the birth of them, and then to now. It's so, I love it. I love when you post stuff.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I do. And I'm really glad that I shared this kind of all of my journey, really, that I went from being pretty private to then talking in some of the support groups where you first encountered me, and then becoming more and more open to sharing my life publicly and the advocacy I do. So I think it's important, and really glad that my story resonates with other people, and love making these friendships and connections as well.
For sure. Anything else?
I know.
Yeah, I kind of took over.
Well, we're grateful that you could join us, Danny, and share your journey.
Thanks.
Well, I also was asking, is there anything else you're working on or anything you want to promote?
I just no, really right now we're just wrapping up things with the film, and like I said, we're trying to find a home for this film, and maybe kind of boost the impact campaign behind it, and get someone to. What would be wonderful is if somebody would sponsor an educational campaign around it, around the theme of parenting with a disability, right?
I'm super surprised myself, as long as it's been around, from the time I saw the trailer put out to, when it was actually in theaters, and then it
Yeah,
was private showing, and can you watch it virtually? Because I
no,
know
it's
that.
not. So it's not publicly available. That's what I mean by we're trying to find a home for it. So
Okay.
right now we can't share it
Mhm.
publicly because no one will pick it up if it's already been seen, right? Somebody needs to buy it and then distribute it.
Mhm.
So we're kind of like, it's a tough industry to be in. There's a lot of competition. There's a lot of politics and favorship, insider
course.
deals.
Would you also be open to people paying for virtual tickets to be able to see it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we've done some screenings, but we have to limit those. We cannot publicize and allow lots and lots of people to watch this, whether they
Right.
pay or not. Because what we need a network that has the capacity to distribute this film,
The whole purpose
to take it
for
up and
Yeah.
broadcast it, basically, whether through it's a streamer or a TV channel like PBS or whatever it is. So we're just waiting for that. We're working on trying to get a deal. And with small independent films like this, most of them fail. And what do the producers end up doing? Sometimes they just end up slapping them on YouTube and people can watch them for free. So you never know. I will keep you guys posted about its ultimate destiny.
Yeah, I'm definitely hoping and praying that it gets traction, because it's such a story that needs to be told. And
Yeah,
the struggles, not just with the pregnancy itself, but accessing different things. And then the fact that I was in the middle of the pandemic too.
oh my gosh.
I was out of pressure and out of stress.
Oh, it was
and
nuts. Yeah. I didn't
not-
when I signed up to do that, I didn't know that there was going to be a global pandemic. Because trust me, I wouldn't have done it. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, so crazy wild story, but yeah, thanks for your support.
Where can people find out or get updates on the progress of Danny's Twins?
Do you still have to
Yeah,
work?
sure. Yeah, so there's a website, Danny's Twins Film, and Danny is spelled DANI. So Danny'sTwinsFilm.com is a website, and then it's the same thing for all of our social media handles, Danny's Twins Film. So they can go to YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and we put updates on those when we can.
We also have a spotlight thing. You might have seen it on our website, that I can create spotlight graphics that
we would love that.
If you
Any
can send
exposure is great.
if you can send me a poster or whatever, graphic on the movie, then I absolutely put that on our website as well, and they can click on it, and I can have it go to your website.
Yeah, that sounds good. And guys, I gotta get back to work.
Thanks a lot for your time, Danny, and
Thank you,
thanks for
guys.
sharing the story.
Yeah, good time.
Thank you so
Great
much.
time. Thank you. If you ever need anything or want to work on anything together, just hit me up.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care.
Have a good day.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
You too.